Am I the only one noticing a theme here? Actually, two themes. The first is that anything in crypto offering too big a return is going to blow up eventually. The second is that when this happens, the contagion spreads through the hyper connected greater crypto world like wildfire, and the most centralized entities seem to fare the worst. We end up with these cascading failures where project after project slowly succumb to the rampant speculation that they too have been exposed to the contagion. Every time this happens, Cardano's much bemoaned lack of interoperability turns out to be our greatest strength and a shield to all the ills affecting the ecosystems of our competitors. Ready? Let's go! Today, we are going to discuss the 3AC contagion and its effects on the big centralized crypto lenders, the Lido community vote as a terrible bellwether of what's to come for Ethereum proof of stake, IOG and Cardano inching closer to Vasil, and a new glimpse of Cardano Island. If your Dexter-like hobby of bacterial culture incubation is just misunderstood by everyone, or if you're enjoying these videos each weekday, please consider delegating to the Army of Spies stake pool, ticker AOS. You'll remember from previous episodes that 3AC was cut down in its youth. Okay, maybe not in its youth, but definitely cut down by the Luna UST debacle. 3AC had invested a huge amount of money in Luna, and the tokens they got in return became worthless, of course, when Luna imploded. The problem with that is that 3AC was very connected to a large number of projects in crypto. And in a previous episode, we looked at an image kind of showing a bunch of the projects in their portfolio. It's a lot of projects. Now we're seeing this post from Ryan Selkis. He says, it does look like 3AC will wipe out BlockFi, Voyager, Celsius, and likely all of Genesis's lifetime revenue. Fortunately, they have the DCG balance sheet behind them. Every major crypto lender gone. And he's commenting on this post down below from CoinDesk. They say, Morgan Creek Digital, you probably know Morgan Creek Digital from some of the posts coming out of Pomp, who is a crypto social media personality. Morgan Creek Digital are trying to put together an alternative rescue package for BlockFi. Why? So this news will be interesting if you already know that Sam Bankman-Fried's FTX was going to extend this credit line of $250 million to BlockFi to bail them out. The problem with that is this second part of the post from CoinDesk. They say why FTX officials' $250 million credit line stood to wipe out BlockFi shareholders, including Morgan Creek. If any of that is at all confusing to you, allow me to offer this beautiful thread from the Bowtied Night Owl. He brands it a crash course in debt, insolvency, and capital structures so you can make sense of what's currently happening in crypto regarding Celsius, BlockFi, and Voyager, and other companies fighting to survive. And what's really important about this, he takes you through a lot of different things so you can understand what happens with distressed companies. But one of the most beautiful posts in this thread is this. He explains the priority of claims when a company goes through one of these two types of bankruptcy. We've got Chapter 7 bankruptcy, liquidation. The company is fully dead. All operations cease and assets are sold off, then distributed per the waterfall. That's this up here, which we'll cover in just a second. Or Chapter 11, restructuring. The equity is wiped out and creditors take control of the company. So you can see when we have a bankruptcy, there's an order of priority of claims. They have to figure out who gets paid first, right? So you've got this, you've got these different categories in this waterfall image he's posted here. You've got certain parties that might have a super priority, and then you've got secured claims as a first lien, secured claims as a second lien, priority unsecured claims, general unsecured claims, and then you've got the equity holders. So FTX is offering to give BlockFi a bunch of money, but that money apparently, according to these posts we're reading, wouldn't leave anything left over for the equity holders. And the post is also reporting that Morgan Creek is a part of that. And so, of course, they're trying to come up with some kind of alternate rescue plan for BlockFi because they don't want to be wiped out because they're on the very bottom of the priority list here. The money's going to start up here, and it looks like the 250 million, the quarter billion, would not make it all the way down to the equity holders because this is a type of restructuring that's going on here. FTX is going to offer them this money. The equity would be wiped out, and the money would be used to pay off higher priority creditors in this waterfall. In the scenario where BlockFi takes the quarter billion from Sam Bankman-Fried and FTX, if you're someone who has deposited assets with BlockFi, you hope that these more senior claims that actually get paid off include you as a depositor, which is different than the scenario that freaked everybody out with Coinbase, which is covered here. New disclosure in today's Coinbase 10Q. That's a quarterly report, which is filed with the SEC. We've talked about those types of filings before, and the Edgar system the SEC maintains. But inside that 10Q, everybody's freaked out. This post was back in May. Everybody's freaked out because of this language right here. Moreover, because custodially held crypto assets may be considered to be the property of a bankruptcy estate. In the event of a bankruptcy, the crypto assets we hold in custody on behalf of our customers could be subject to bankruptcy proceedings, and such customers could be treated as our general unsecured creditors. This may result in customers finding our custodial services more risky and less attractive, and any failure to increase our customer base. Okay, so they just go on and on about how that might affect their customer base. But what freaked everybody out is they were like, oh, okay, we're down here in this category. And if the assets that are liquidated in any kind of bankruptcy proceeding only satisfy these more senior claims, we're just going to be out of luck on the assets we have deposited with Coinbase. Obviously, these types of SEC filings often include disclosures from the company of all kinds of risks, no matter how remote they might be. But people were still rightfully concerned when they realized that even their precious Coinbase could, in some circumstances, turn out to be the sort of accidental lobster trap scenario where you deposit your assets somewhere instead of just holding them on your hardware wallet like a ledger, and you never get them back. These kinds of events are exactly why I don't deposit my assets with these types of centralized entities. I keep my crypto assets on my ledger, on my hardware wallet. I don't put them into anything that could become even an accidental lobster trap. It's too unpredictable. Crypto is so crazy and hyper connected, and we have these failures regularly enough, and we see these ripple effects, these echoes across the crypto space. Luna UST imploded, which affected a VC entity, which is now affecting all these other projects. It's too hard to predict these kinds of things, and the unpredictability is high enough. I think you just can't deposit your assets with any of these kinds of entities, even if they're offering you these crazy high interest rates. Very attractive. Earning that kind of interest on your crypto assets was and probably always will be extremely attractive because you don't see those kinds of returns anywhere else in any kind of normal scenario. But the reason the returns are so high is that there is risk. There's risk just like this, and unfortunately, I think some number of people are going to experience the worst, possibly the worst outcome because they had an appetite for that high level of risk in order to see those very high returns. Obviously here, CoinDesk is talking about the equity holders of BlockFi, the shareholders getting wiped out. That's different than the regular retail depositors of BlockFi and of these centralized entities. But we still haven't seen how far this thing's going to go. We don't know how far this contagion is going to reach. We don't know. We don't know what the internal financials of any of these entities looks like. So we still don't know what's going to happen here. Speaking of centralization, here's a very ominous bellwether as to the future faced by Ethereum in proof of stake. SoBizR says Lido controls 32% of Ethereum stake. You'll remember Lido is the staking derivatives platform in Ethereum. Unless you have 32 ETH, which is a large amount of money, you have to lock up your delegation with the stake pool. It's not this liquid staking like we have in Cardano. You actually have to lock up your delegation. You lose custody of it, which is a problem because people want to use their Ethereum to do DeFi things. Lido is the leading solution there, as they give you a derivative token to represent your ether that you have locked up with the stake pools, and then you can use that derivative to do DeFi things. He says, unsurprisingly, 99.76% of Lido holders are voting against self-limiting Lido stake. Makes sense. More stake equals more money flowing to holders of Lido. Decentralization be damned. 1 out of 2. And you can see the vote was hilarious. 99.76% of people said, no, don't self-limit. I think a lot of people in Ethereum were hoping that Lido would self-limit because them already having 32% of Ethereum's proof of stake delegation is a problem for Ethereum decentralization, or I guess at this point we should just say centralization. I checked the most recent results since this post was made, and it's actually only jumped up to 99.77%. You can see here Lido's share of the delegation is very gigantic. They have more than Binance, more than Coinbase, more than Kraken. He says, question is, why does Ethereum's proof of stake design rely on entities acting against their own economic interests? Doesn't sound very robust to me. And I think he's right. Your proposal is never going to win if it relies on people acting against their own best economic interest, and there's not some overwhelming reason why they would want to act against their own economic interests. People are largely going to act in their own economic best interest, especially if they're anonymous. If there's no social shaming that can be executed on to force people to act against their own economic interest, they're pretty much going to always vote in favor of their own pocketbooks. This is a pretty serious centralization risk for Ethereum going forward. The problem is Ethereum is a permissionless blockchain. There's not really anybody out there who can go to Lido and say, hey, Lido, you're not allowed to have unlimited stake. And it's very obvious from this vote, 99.76%, updated just a little bit ago to 99.77% of token holders, or of tokens at least, voted that they don't want to limit themselves. And there's nobody out there who can really say any different. In contrast, over here in Cardano, it's nothing but bright skies, fluffy clouds, and rainbows. IOHK says, today we're pleased to report that the IOG team has successfully tagged and released Cardano node 1.35.0, which we can confirm will be the final candidate for the mainnet Vasil release. So there it is. We've already got the Cardano node, which will be the final candidate for the mainnet Vasil hard fork. IOHK said they needed, something like another month just to make sure there were no mistakes with the Vasil hard fork. And here we are. It's not even July yet, and we've already got the final candidate. Finally, Virtua is giving us another glimpse of its Cardano Island, and they say Cardano Island is coming very soon. We promise you it'll be worth the wait. I really like the sounds of this, coming very soon. And the glimpse they gave us is sort of like satellite imagery. It's almost like a satellite image of the map of Cardano Island, and it looks pretty cool. It kind of reminds me of some of the fictional representations I've seen of sort of the Atlantis, a fictional Atlantis map, something like that. Of course, hopefully this one stays above water, but this looks pretty cool. I always try to reserve judgment on these Cardano metaverse projects and all metaverse projects until we can actually get in there and walk around with our little avatars on the ground and fully experience these metaverse virtual worlds once they're actually launched. I think it's really hard to tell, even based on, you know, everything these projects are giving us, all these little teasers. I think it's really hard to tell, because it's one thing to produce a little 7-second video like this and a few sort of still images. It's another thing to create an entire virtual world. So I'm excited to see what all these projects actually amount to in the end. And I really like the sounds of this coming very soon. Does this mean in the next month, the next 2 months, the next calendar year, whatever it is, coming very soon is better than not coming very soon. I hope you had a great weekend. I hope you're starting out a great week. It is definitely summertime in my neck of the woods. There's a lot of fun things going on. I know it's a different scenario for everybody in the Southern Hemisphere. I know you guys are encountering a very different season, but I hope wherever you are, you're going to have a great week, and I will talk to you tomorrow.